Your Honor, my sister passed away. And instead of this man right here taking care of me, he started to fight and left. He wasn't there. The other man is the one who was texting my phone saying, "Are you okay?"
Why was you texting your phone? How you have your phone number?
Why weren't you taking care of me?
We was arguing all the time through that time.
Exactly.
I traveled to Los Angeles back in '81, and I ran into a relative. This individual told me that their relative had my son. I got the information and I called Mrs. Lewis. Do we need to talk about something? And she said, no. I said, what about your son? What's going on there? Our ex-wife? She said, his dad is dead.
Oh boy, this case starts off wild and only gets messier. Judge Lake introduces the case, where Mr. Scales claims Ms. Williams, the girl he's called his daughter her whole life, might not even be his because her mom cheated on him. And just like that, the courtroom is ready to explode with drama.
Ms. Williams, 5 years ago, the defendant, who you believed was your father, revealed a shocking family secret, that your mother cheated, and you are not his daughter. You and your sister are in court to prove him wrong.
Things get super awkward when Mr. Scales spills his story about the night he says Ms. Williams' mom cheated on him. He remembers waking up at 2 a.m. during an away game in 1983 and realizing she wasn't in their hotel room. It's already messy, but now everyone's waiting to see how this story unravels.
In 1983, we had an away game in Pensacola, and I took Miss Williams with me. We checked into a hotel. I went to bed early because I worked that day, and it was a Friday. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, and Miss Williams is no longer in the room. I can't say exactly how long, but I know it was at least an hour or two.
Now, Ms. Williams drops a bomb of her own when she talks about how she didn't find out her dad doubted her until she was 27. Imagine going through your whole life thinking you know who your dad is, and then boom, plot twist. Everyone's leaning in, waiting for her dad's big excuse.
I was 27 at the time. When I spoke with my mom, she had the fact that he was questioning paternity of me. He told me that there were some events that he didn't really feel the need to discuss with me at the time, that it was a discussion that she wasn't supposed to share with me. I spoke with my mom about it later, and she gave me more details, what actually had occurred.
Mr. Scales says he kept the paternity doubts to himself to give Ms. Williams a gift, a childhood without confusion. Honestly, that sounds like the weirdest gift ever. The audience is clearly ready for Ms. Williams to fire back.
Didn't say anything is because I wanted to give this child a gift and question who her father was.
Well, that wasn't fair for me to have to question that at 27 years old.
I'm your parent, I'm not your friend, and I have responsibilities and duties. I wanted to tell you at 27 because it's important for medical reasons, for moral reasons.
And here's where things get bananas. Ms. Williams shows her birth certificate and Mr. Scales' name is right there. But guess what? He straight up says, that's not my signature. The crowd is buzzing now, and everyone's ready to see where this goes next.
I've never signed your birth certificate, Elisa.
You're listed as father.
I could be listed as father, but I never signed it.
I could be this child's father, but I might not be.
That's correct.
Everything in me feels like I'm his daughter. I feel that I look like him.
How was it presented to you
accomplished.
specifically?
Really?
Judge Lake tries to calm the chaos and explain why it's hard to know the right time to drop news like this. But seriously, 27 years feels like way too late to bring it up. Just as the tension dies down, we hear more about Mr. Scales' real reasons.
Be clear, I completely and wholeheartedly empathize and understand both of you are saying. I cannot fathom being 27 years old, and the 20s are hard, girl. Just a tough time for young women.
And that's the time that he chose to bring it up.
And get this, Mr. Scales admits he never told Ms. Williams' mom he doubted her paternity because he didn't want to start drama. Yeah, sure, keeping secrets always works, right? Judge decides it's time to bring the mom into this mess.
I wasn't clear because I didn't want to cause any commotion or dissension. I wanted everything to go as if it was normal.
I was born at this time. It was never normal. There was always some tension about something.
Okay, the mom shows up and immediately starts throwing shade, calling Mr. Scales a liar. Then she admits, oh yeah, there was an affair, but it happened after the night he's talking about. This feels like a soap opera, but we're all waiting for the next bombshell about Ms. Williams' sister, Tonga.
It's no reason at all, Your Honor. If he was gonna doubt a child, he should doubt Tonja. I had the affair with the person in question when I met
I rest my case, Your Honor.
in question. I didn't even have any kids from him.
This night in question, you did leave the room.
I did leave.
And you did have an affair.
I didn't have relations.
Plot twist. Ms. Williams' mom confirms Mr. Scales isn't listed on Tonga's birth certificate, which raises even more eyebrows. By now, everyone's questioning everything, and the suspense is building for the DNA test.
You didn't sign my birth certificate, or is that why
He never signed the birth certificate. I did put him on a lease.
He listed on Tanja's birth
No,
certificate.
he's not.
He is not. Mr. Scales is not listed as father on her birth certificate.
Why not?
Now, she was born first.
It's go time, folks. The DNA test comes back. And guess what?
It has been determined by this court. Scales, you are her father.
Mission accomplished.
Imagine your partner just saying, nah, that kid isn't mine. Ms. England says Mr. Kaiser is denying their baby Isaac, even though he's fine claiming the older kid. Mr. Kaiser says she was with another guy during their breakup, so he's sure that dude is the dad. This is like a soap opera, but messier.
You say that you and Mr. Kaiser have been together for 6 years, have a 3-year-old son together, but claim he's now denying your 6-month-old son Isaac, and you're here to prove that he is the father. Mr. Kaiser, you acknowledge one child with Ms. England, but say Isaac is not yours. She slept with another man, and you are 100% sure he is the father.
Ms. England admits she moved in with another guy after she and Mr. Kaiser broke up, but Isaac was conceived when they toured and they tried to get back together. Both agree things were falling apart, but this drama is only getting started.
She knows why I denied the baby. She stayed gone for 3 months with this other man.
Did you move in with another man?
Yes, Your Honor, I did. We were in a relationship for 4.5 years
Okay.
before we finally split, and I went with the other man. Yes.
And then during the split,
During the split, Isaac was conceived.
and so basically your relationship is completely on the brink. Like the stakes are high.
If it doesn't get solved today, it's over.
Things go off the rails. Mr. Kaiser says she snuck around with another guy. She blames his lack of support, especially after her sister passed away. It's just yelling and accusations. And yes, it gets even louder from here.
Your Honor, my sister passed away, and instead of this man right here taking care of me, he started to fight and left. He wasn't there. The other man is the one who was texting my phone saying, "Are you okay?"
Why was he texting your phone? How you have your phone number?
Why weren't you taking care of me?
We was arguing all the time during that time.
Exactly.
So there obviously was a breakdown in the relationship.
Right.
Yes.
They pull out a calendar. Ms. England says she was only with Mr. Kaiser during the conception window. She gives exact dates, but Mr. Kaiser's not buying it. Spoiler alert, this doesn't clear anything up. Science class is about to begin.
Your Honor, on the 25th of March is the last time I had been sexual with the other man. On the 28th, me and Mr. Kaiser, we got back together. We had unprotected sex on the 28th, the 29th, 30th, the 31st, and the 1st. And my conception date is the 30th of March. I had sex with the other man before the conception window.
Now it's about tongue ties and babies born with teeth. Ms. England says those traits run in Mr. Kaiser's family, but he's like, teeth? Really? But wait, here comes a doctor to sort this all out.
That baby's also tongue-tied, genetic trait. That baby
Okay.
looks like our 3-year-old child.
And you're referring to a medical condition.
Yes, ma'am.
She don't know if that guy's father
That's not
is
true,
tongue-tied or
'cause
not.
I-
What if the other guy didn't have it, but his daddy had it? You see what I'm saying, Your Honor?
His daddy did not have it.
How does she know that, Your Honor? She never met the other guy's father.
Dr. McLaurin says tongue ties and natal teeth could be genetic, but it's not 100% guaranteed. Basically, this whole tooth argument is still up in the air. But forget the teeth, it's DNA test time, and things are about to get real.
There is no research that says 100% that if he has a tongue tie, his child will have a tongue tie.
See?
And the research I read said 50-50 chance.
Is there research that says otherwise as well?
Yes. It's not necessarily that it says otherwise, it just, the complexity comes in diagnosing a tongue tie.
Here comes the bombshell, and wow, it's a tough one. The DNA results come back, and guess what?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Kaiser, you are not the father.
Are you sure?
All right, folks, this is where it all starts. Drama Central. The court introduces the case of Miles versus Turner. Mr. Miles, after 37 whole years, claims Christine is his daughter. Christine's like, nah, not buying it. My mom says you're not the guy. Oh, this is gonna get messy real fast.
Mr. Miles, you are in court today to prove to your 37-year-old daughter, Christine, that you are her father. You admit you initially denied paternity when she was a baby, but are here to right your wrongs. But she now wants wants to prove you are not her biological father.
Christine doesn't hold back. She asks Mr. Miles why he's showing up now after being MIA her whole life and reminds him her mom always said he wasn't her dad. Mr. Miles, looking cornered, says her mom was inconsistent about it. It's a messy blame game.
I don't believe you're my father. My mom says you are not my father. You've been absent for 37 years. Why? Why now?
Your mom said that I was your father, and why now? I had the opportunity to be able to look for you because I wanted to see who you are and who your family was.
It took you 37 years to do that?
All of this started, I was young and I was stupid.
Mr. Miles shares his backstory. He found out about Christine when the court told him he was a dad. He admits he initially denied she was his, but now wants to make it right. Christine looks unimpressed, thinking it's way too late for that.
A few months later, I'm in court. I didn't even know she was pregnant. I didn't even know she had a baby until I got summons to go to court. Are you the father? And at that time, your mom was not just sleeping with me, she was with other guys. They asked your mom, and she said, yeah, he's the father. In about 15 minutes of a court session, I was named the father. At the time, I didn't believe it.
Christine opens up about her tough childhood without a dad, trouble at school, foster care, everything. She's strong now, but asks Mr. Miles why he's here. His answer isn't very convincing.
I was really bad as a student. I got in a lot of trouble. I went to foster care 4 years. I went through lots of therapy to forget all this, and I'm back today.
But you're strong, and you're not alone, because we're here with you.
Thank you.
Plot twist. Mr. Miles says he found out later he owed a lot in child support. Christine remembers her mom getting those checks and being confused since she didn't raise her. The drama just keeps escalating.
In 1992, we filed our taxes. Taxes came back, and there's a letter. You owe like $28,000 in back child support. And that just shocked me. Like I said, I just didn't have a clue that was even there.
And you didn't try to find out then?
Back then, there was no internet, no cell phones. All you had was people that you knew and telephone lines.
They met when Christine was 16. Mr. Miles even offered her a place, but after that, she heard nothing from him again. He claims it was due to money issues, but Christine isn't buying it.
Well, I met Mr. Miles one time when I was 16. He came to my grandparents' house. My grandparents actually let me go stay the night with him and his wife. I was never told about them until that very day, to how I was gonna feel.
I thought we did, hit it off pretty good. And I think I asked her if she wanted to come live with us if possible.
We were willing to take her in as ours.
Absolutely.
Christine's mom admits she was seeing someone else when Christine was conceived and insists Mr. Miles isn't the dad. Christine is stunned, while Mr. Miles still believes he could be. It's chaotic, and Christine wants answers.
I met Rick at a bar and our relationship was not too serious and short term. Shortly after Rick and I split, I started seeing another man and I became pregnant soon after. Time I conceived Christine. She had to be conceived around May 1979. I wasn't with Rick.
All right, the moment of truth is here and it's intense. The DNA results are in, and guess what?
It has been determined by this court. Jamile, you are not the father. I'm very sorry.
All right, buckle up, because this story is about to get completely bananas. Judge introduces the case of Lewis versus McAllister. Mr. Lewis says he's sure Mr. McAllister is his dad, and they're here to finally solve a 44-year-old mystery. What happens next? Oh, it's wild.
Mr. Lewis, you say you've always known the defendant is your father and say his paternity denials are mere excuses as to why he was not there for you. You hope today's results put an end to this 44-year-old mystery.
Seriously, this story is already giving soap opera vibes. Mr. McAllister says he's got his doubts because he's heard so many different stories about who the dad is, and he really wants to know the truth today. Next up, let's dig into the backstory of these two.
Mr. McAllister, you claim that years of doubt have given you reason to believe that you are not father, but you may know who is. You are ready to prove your case today.
Imagine being told who your dad is after years of not knowing. Yeah, it's that kind of emotional roller coaster. Mr. Lewis explains how his mom gave him a picture of Mr. McAllister and told him he was his father, but this only happened way later in life. And trust me, Mr. McAllister's side of things is even more of a head scratcher.
Well, my mom, it was because the type of woman she was, she didn't want to allow the turmoil from that, a fear, interfere with my life. But as a woman, we had to move on. She let me know who he was as a father. She had a picture of him,
So was this some defining moment in your life when your mother said to you, I want to tell you who your father was, or was this always just...
No, it was clear, yeah, when I found out, yeah.
Okay, now this is where things get really messy. Mr. McAllister says he heard all kinds of stories, like 4 different versions, about who the dad was, including one where the guy was dead. Spoiler, the drama is just warming up.
I traveled to Los Angeles back in '81, and I ran into a relative. This individual told me that that their relative had my son. I got the information and I called Mrs. Lewis. Do we need to talk about something? And she said, no. I said, what about your son? What's going on there? Our ex-wife? She said, his dad is dead.
This part sounds like a game of telephone gone wrong. Mr. McAllister shares how he heard rumors that the father might be his cousin Michael, or some random guy, or someone else entirely. It's basically a paternity whodunit. But hang on, here's the kicker. Mr. Lewis's middle name is Michael. Yep.
I also heard that it could have been my first cousin, Michael. And unfortunately, a family member told me there was someone from the location, the city that I stayed in. I also heard from the mom that he died. So those are 4 different versions. So as I said, before I leave here, I just felt just important that I know for sure.
The middle name twist is just Chef's kiss-level drama. Judge Lake points out how Mr. Lewis's middle name matches Mr. McAllister's cousin's name, adding another layer to this chaotic puzzle. Trust me, the next part will have you questioning everything.
I see that Mr. Lewis's full name is Jermaine Michael Lewis.
I never even looked at that like that.
And Michael is your cousin's first name.
That is correct.
Have you ever heard anything about Mr. McAllister's cousin or your mother potentially having a relationship with him?
Never.
Growing up in South Central LA is already a tough gig, but this story takes it to another level. Mr. Lewis shares how he leaned on football to avoid gangs, thanks to his mom's protection. But wait, what's next? Let's talk about why his mom may have told him his dad was dead.
What was life like?
Tough, you know. I mean, growing up, I gravitated to football because there were opportunities to get into gangs being in South Central Los Angeles. My mother, she protected me because when she told him, and I'm not sure if she did say that, but I can see my mother, if she did say he was dead, it was to protect me because we had already moved.
Mr. McAllister suddenly popping back into Mr. Lewis's life is the definition of awkward timing. He says he tried to reconnect when Mr. Lewis was 16, even though he wasn't sure he was the dad. Mr. Lewis's reaction? Oh, it's a mix of, okay, and seriously, dude?
When I finally found out about that there was a possibility here, I reached out to him and I told him I was gonna be coming to Los Angeles and I would like to meet him. Me and my ex-wife was going on vacation. And
How old was Jermaine then?
He was 16 at the time. And we met and everything. And, you know, I just wanted to get to know him. I wanted him to get to know me.
The timing of Mr. McAllister's reappearance is, let's say, super convenient. Mr. Lewis was doing great in football and had scholarships lined up. So he felt like Mr. McAllister only showed up because of his success. The next bit dives into what it was like when Mr. McAllister tried to patch things up.
It was bittersweet because I totally felt that he came around because things in my life were good. You know, me playing football, I had some scholarship offers. So that's why things to me kind of seem fishy. Like all of a sudden, now that you see you have a son and he's doing well, now you're picking up the phone. Because like I say, where we're from, tough for us not to know because it's such a small community.
If you thought things couldn't get more awkward, think again. Mr. McAllister's daughter, Domenica, steps in to say she believes Mr. Lewis is her brother and recalls how her dad introduced him as family when she was little. What happens next? Oh, just more head-scratching decisions by Mr. McAllister.
I was very young. Mr. Lewis was in town visiting, and I remember my father telling me that it was a cousin that was visiting initially. Later, after Mr. Lewis left and went back to LA, my father sat me down and told me that that was my brother, and he wanted to know how I felt about having an older brother.
Years of rumors, confusion, and doubts are about to come to an end. Finally, Judge Lake sums up the mess of conflicting stories that have plagued this case for 44 years. Next up, the DNA results, and trust me, they're worth the wait.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. McAllister, you are the father.
Wow, right off the bat, you know this is going to be a wild ride. The case of Walker versus DeVost kicks off with Mr. Walker claiming he's the dad of baby Kaimani. Ms. DeVost, though, casually drops the bomb that he's not. Oh, and she also admits she let him believe this for a whole year. Buckle up because this mess is just getting started and the drama is about to go full speed.
Mr. Walker, you claim the defendant led you to believe you fathered her son, Kamani, for an entire year, but just 6 months ago told you you are not father and refuses to let you see him. You are here to prove that Kamani is your biological son.
Mr. Walker and Ms. DeVost met in foster care and got close, but weren't officially dating. She told him he was the dad, But there was another guy, and just like that, chaos begins.
We met when we was in foster care. We was like this group home setting for older youth to live on their own independently. We met there, we became friends, and then I came back. I don't know, somehow we got back in contact. I was like over his house every day. It was like a getaway. We wasn't in a relationship, but it was a situation like we was together.
Ms. DeVos admits to being with someone else when Kaimani was conceived. Mr. Walker had no idea, even though he was working 2 jobs to prepare for the baby. The mess just keeps piling up.
When I find out that she's pregnant, I really just start to prepare myself mentally, and I also was just looking for work. I had 2 jobs at the time. I was just really trying to just prepare myself for everything. So I know what it means to have a child. I didn't really have a dad growing up, and I grew up in the system, and I don't know, I like babies.
Mr. Walker thought he was starting a family, signing the birth certificate and giving his all. Ms. DeVos, meanwhile, kept her doubts because she feared being alone, and what she admits next, even more shocking.
I actually have the birth certificate that I signed when he was first born.
I'd like to see that. And so you were there.
Yes,
she told you it was your child and you lived up to what you were supposed to do. This is the birth certificate for Kaimani Dominique DeVos Walker. He has your last name and you are listed as father, willingly and voluntarily.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. DeVos admits she felt bad for lying, but let Mr. Walker stay because he was doing all the right things. The judge is unimpressed, giving her a side eye, and somehow it gets even wilder.
I didn't want to hurt him. Like, I already felt like I regret telling him, letting him go through with it, because when I looked at my son, after I got through my surgery and everything, I thought he seen my son before I did. Can't turn back now, not to tell him that he's not the father. He been there the whole pregnancy, he was there, so I'm like, it's too late, it felt.
Mr. Walker shows text where Ms. DeVos tells him he's not the dad, even saying, you ruined your own life. The judge calls her out, and then things get even messier when the other guy is mentioned.
So it says, you say you kicked me out with damn near no place to go. You wasn't thinking about our son or anything. He's not your son. So as long as I'm on the birth certificate, I'm not going anywhere. You ruined my whole life. You're not his father. You ruined your own life. You cold-blooded.
Ms. DeVos says the baby looks like the other guy, who sometimes FaceTimes but isn't around. Mr. Walker sits there crushed, and the DNA results are coming up next. Buckle up for the final twist.
Did you ever do a paternity test with the other man?
No.
So how are you certain he's the child's biological father?
He looks just like him. They got family members that look identical too, so.
You still allowed Mr. Walker to believe for the first 8 months of Kaimani's life he was the child's biological father?
Yes.
And here's the moment that leaves everyone's jaw on the floor.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Walker, you are not the father.
I'm sorry.
2 guys think they're the dad of the same baby. Judge Lake takes on the case of Murray versus Gerald Donaldson, with Mr. Murray and Mr. Donaldson both claiming to be 18-month-old Anaya's father. Ms. Harris admits she was with both guys. It's messy, and it's about to get even messier.
There are 2 men in court today claiming to have fathered your 18-month-old daughter, Anaya, your current boyfriend, the plaintiff, Mr. Murray, and the defendant, your ex-boyfriend, Mr. Donaldson. They are both in court today to prove paternity.
Ms. Harris says Mr. Donaldson dumped her after she got pregnant, telling her, actually, I like someone else. He even thought she faked the pregnancy to keep him around. Awkward enough already, but Mr. Donaldson's side of the story just makes it worse.
From my understanding, we was dating, but then when I got pregnant, he told me he had feelings for another girl. He told me that he didn't want to be with me, so I was basically alone during my pregnancy. He was there during the baby shower, and he came to the hospital with his mom when I had her.
You're in a relationship. You all a boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yeah, we were.
Mr. Donaldson didn't believe her, so he brought over a pregnancy test like it was a science experiment. He didn't believe it until her belly grew, and he eventually showed up at the hospital. Just as he seems to be stepping up, his mom has her own version of events.
How long did this relationship last between you and Mr. Donaldson?
It was like a couple months. It wasn't that long.
At some point, he did accept that the baby was his?
He had to when he seen that my belly was big.
Because you said at first he didn't even believe it, so then when your stomach started growing.
No, he brought me a pregnancy test.
So you brought her a pregnancy test and said, prove it.
Mr. Donaldson's mom, Ms. Gerald, didn't find out about the pregnancy until 5 months in. She accepted her son as the dad, but family whispers started saying the baby looked like Mr. Murray instead. And just as things heat up, Mr. Murray brings his own twist to the story.
I did not find out about it until she was about 5 months, maybe. When he told me about it, I accepted that he was. That's what Chastity stated, that he was the dad.
At what point, Mr. Donaldson, did you say, Mom, I have something I have to tell you?
I didn't even tell her, honestly. I told my father, and my father told her.
Mr. Murray found out he might be the dad because Mr. Donaldson randomly DM'd him on Facebook. Turns out Mr. Murray and Ms. Harris had a fling, and they can't agree on whether they used protection. It's a soap opera with more receipts and a messier timeline.
Why do you believe you could be the biological father of this child?
One day I was on Facebook and I got a message with Jalen. He told me that the baby could possibly be mine.
Telling you that the baby could possibly be yours?
Yeah, I need to get a DNA test.
You sent him that message, Mr. Donaldson?
I'm not gonna say yes, I'm not gonna say no. I don't recall.
Ms. Harris admits she was with both guys around the same time. She insists Mr. Murray used protection, but he disagrees. And then Mr. Murray casually mentions an unprotected threesome in December. Now the court has to sort out this web of dates to figure out the truth.
Because during that time, he used protection. And from the time that he's talking about he could be her father is from a time in December.
The time that you had sex without protection was in December.
Yes.
It wasn't during the window of conception.
No.
Date of conception was around February the 10th. Anaya was born on October 21st.
Yes.
Despite the chaos, Mr. Murray stepped up, being there for Anaya since she was 3 months old. Both sides argue the baby looks like their guy, but the resemblance game is far from over. DNA results are just around the corner, and no one's ready for what's next.
Who's in her life as father? Who does she bond with as a father?
Mr. Murray. She looks to him like he's her father because he's been there ever since she was 3 months.
At that point in time, she was in like a down position, so I just took her in. Like, I take care of both of y'all.
Both families insist she looks just like him, but with pictures of both guys shown in court, even the judge says they're guessing. The moment of truth is coming, and trust me, it's going to be a shocker.
You believe Anaya looks like your grandchild, like your son's baby. And that's a picture of Mr. Murray on the left and Anaya on the right. Why are you smiling like that, Mr. Donaldson?
Because that's a real, they do look alike. Like that. You can't even lie. They look alike.
Was a baby picture of Mr. Donaldson.
Okay, here it is. Time to finally get some answers, right? Wrong.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Murray, you are not the father. Miss Harris?